Welcome along to the preview show, Dave. Great to have you back. We spoke a few weeks ago, didn't we? The last
Mhm.
international break. We're coming up to the fourth game of that block of fixtures that we spoke about. Are you surprised at how things have unravelled?
um, yes and no. I can't quite remember exactly what I'd said, but I'm sure I would have been hoping that Wolves were in a better position a few
Mm.
weeks ago than what we are now. Um, yeah, frustrating times at Wolves, to be honest. It puts a hell of a lot of pressure on this game, I think, to be completely honest. Last week against Palace, there were some good moments, but again, some frustrating moments, and ultimately another game without a win. So we're one win in 20 now, I think.
Mm.
So going into this game, for me personally, I think there's massive pressure on Gary O'Neill to get 3 points from this match.
Yeah, it's been a while since you won a Premier League game. The only team not to won a Premier League game so far this season.
Mhm.
Southampton managed to do that last week. I was looking at the statistics actually on this one. It's the worst start to a league campaign since 1983, 1984 for Wolverhampton Wanderers. I'm really surprised. Are you?
Yeah, I am. I think, look, we were given a very tough start, no doubt about it. But with the quality in this Wolves team, I would have certainly would have hoped that we could have upset teams as such, or definitely got more points on the board. There have been, although we've had a tough start, there have been fixtures where historically we would have won. We played Newcastle at home, played quite well against them. Forest away, I know Forest have started off brightly, but you could have easily backed us to get a win in that game. Um, and obviously against Palace away as well last week. It's frustrating. I think there's only two campaigns worse, top flight campaigns worse than what this season so far, which is the one that you just mentioned there included. So yeah, it's not brilliant reading, to be honest. And like I said, one win in 20. That win was against Luton, who are now sort of bottom half of the championship.
Mm.
Yes, we have played some tough teams in that time, but ultimately, whatever division you're in, that record isn't good enough. So yeah, for me, I would be shocked if we come out of this game without any. I think even a draw would put a lot of pressure on Gary O'Neill, to be honest. I think
Mm.
going into another international break with us at the foot of the table, it would be a perfect time really to get a replacement in if things don't go to plan on Saturday.
Dave, 27 goals conceded this season. It's no surprise that O'Neill was under massive pressure, but the defence has just leaked way too many goals. It's the worst of any team in the division at this
Yeah.
moment in time, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awful defensively at the moment. It's frustrating because you look at our attacking numbers and they're actually pretty good, to be honest. We're on
Mm.
par with some of the better teams in the league, to be honest, in terms of the amount of goals we're scoring. And we've only failed to score actually in one game, which is the opening game of the season against Arsenal. But other than that, like you've said, defensively we've been awful. A couple of heavy defeats in terms of conceded five at Brent against Brentford, six against Chelsea, or vice versa. But just daft errors as well. You may have
Mm.
seen in the news. I think it was during the last international break. It was after the Brentford game. Actually, we'd sacked our set piece coach, who was a young lad who came in during the summer because we
Mm.
were conceding too many corners. He'd gone, I think, almost to pass the blame onto someone.
Mm.
But ultimately, they've still been as bad. We conceded both goals against Palace came from set pieces last week. Um, I think I could accept it a little bit more if we were scoring from set pieces ourselves, but our record from corners and free kicks is not brilliant, to be honest.
Mm.
So, um, yeah, defensively we've been awful, and it's just daft mistakes. It's not like I can sort of say to a lot of these goals, fair play. That's a moment of brilliance. That's a moment of quality. They are coming a lot from our daft mistakes, giving away the ball cheaply, or
Mm.
just silly defensive errors, really. So that really has to change. Whether Gary O'Neill sorts it out or whether it is going to be a new man in charge.
It's a massive game for both teams, isn't it? Because both us and yourselves, we're probably at risk of being left a little bit behind if we don't begin to pick up those wins. Saints managed to get a win against Everton at the weekend, but it was hard work. They made very hard work of it. It wasn't a great performance at all. Saints are the lowest scorers in the division at this moment in time. Just scored 7 goals this term. It will. I think it'd be a tense game, don't you? How do you see it unraveling between the two sides? There's not going to be loads of goals in it. I looked at the statistics actually. Just one of the last 8 top flight head-to-heads between these two teams has been decided by a margin of 2+ goals.
Oh wow. Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be really tense, and I don't know from the out sort of people are telling me from within the club that the atmosphere is surprisingly for a team in that position, still quite positive. I think the players know that they've got enough quality there that if they do get a win, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but you get a win, and I think that more wins will start to follow. But ultimately, Wolves have still got a favourable run. I say
Mm,
favourable, on paper, the teams that we should be competing with, but it does include the likes of Fulham, who've had, good starts to the season as well. And then
mm,
there are other teams in and around us. We play Everton in a few weeks, West Ham, who on their day do have quality as well. So they are, and no game in the Premier League is easy. But yeah, it's going to be tense towards because I think there were jeers and chance of you don't know what you're doing towards Gary O'Neill. I think if things don't start off well or positively on Saturday, it could turn toxic very, very quickly at Molineux, to be honest. So
mm,
Wolves have got to get off to a good start. I think, especially if Southampton grab the first goal,
mm,
it could be a nasty place on Saturday afternoon. But
mm,
yeah, Wolves have got to get the first goal. I think the longer it goes on, the tenser I think it will get. Um,
mm.
I think a point away from home for you guys would probably be okay. I think
Yeah.
I know you're gonna want to get 3 points, but especially as you've already got that win last week, there's that little bit of pressure off. I think, but I think both teams are very fortunate in the fact that there's quite a few teams that have been quite poor so far this season. I think any other campaign, then we may already be 6, 7, 8, 9 points adrift. Whereas at the moment, a couple of games and your season could completely swing the other way. But yeah, I'm a little bit nervous going into it, to be honest. I sort of go into these sort of games thinking whatever will be will be. But yeah, I think it's a bit of a strange one. There's a lot of Wolves fans almost going into this game not bothered about the result because if we win, then great. But if we lose, then there's a big chance the manager will go. And
Mm.
it's strange going to football matches having that mentality. But ultimately, that's where we are at a football club as a football club at the moment.
Been the same feeling at Southampton with Russell Martin. Very, very same feeling. And even though we got a win at the weekend against Everton, I still feel defeat against Wolves, and he's still under big pressure because of the start to the season. Five game winning streak for Wolves against Southampton. Wolves have the longest winning run against any other team in the competition than Saints at the moment. So 5 game winning streak for you. It makes a positive omen.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Yeah, I know. We had some pretty decent games. I think we had a couple of good games at St Mary's. I remember. I mean, most recent one was when we went down to 10 men.
And
Lamine
one.
got that red card, and yeah, and then that was a good comeback. But I think that was Nathan Jones's last game. I think,
It
and
was, yeah. Got Nathan
yeah,
Jones sacked that game.
yeah. So, but yeah, I think at Molineux as well. We've had some good games, and St Mary's mainly, I think. I think there was one game where you were 2-0 up, and I think we came back and won 3-2, maybe off the top of my head. Jimenez got his first sort of comeback goal there as well. So, I suppose it bodes well, but, Gary O'Neill, sorry, has
Mm.
broken a lot of records negatively for Wolves so far this season. So, obviously, I hope that isn't one where Southampton break that unbeaten run.
Yeah, they're not keeping clean sheets. I look back into last term as well, and that we're looking at the stats around it. They're not great, are they? For goals conceded, I think the defense has not kept a clean sheet. Is it 22 games since the last Premier League clean sheet? Going back into
Probably.
last season, that's what they were
Sounds
saying
about
on Flash
sounds
Score.
about
Yeah.
right. Yeah. It probably will be. Um, yeah, it's frustrating, and I think they've just sort of almost not known what to do. They've moved players on, they've signed players. I think there
Hmm.
was a lot of frustration in the summer that we hadn't signed another centre back. I thought in terms of numbers, it was okay. I think we just maybe lacked better quality defenders, but I thought in terms of numbers, it was all right short term. But then we got injuries or suspensions, and all of a sudden you're looking at the two centre backs, and you want to play
Hmm.
a back four. Risking it a little bit. Then the goalkeeper situation, Jose Sarr had an underwhelming season last year, and then the sort of situation with him and Sam Johnston this summer hasn't been. It's been quite messy to be honest.
Yeah, what's happening with
So
the goalkeeping situation? Because I read a bit about this at the weekend. I read a Wolves forum, and they're not particularly happy with the way that Sarr plays with his feet. But and
yeah.
Johnson's not great with his feet either. What's the situation with the goalkeepers?
So obviously, Saar was the goalkeeper last year, and he had a couple of years ago. He was really, really good. Had a really solid season.
Yeah.
Last year was a little bit hit and miss. He won us points, especially at the start of the season, but ultimately there was like you've just mentioned, the distribution held us back a lot. But Gary O'Neill wanted to try and play out the back, and whenever Saar was getting the ball to his feet, he'd either panic or he'd put it out of play. So ultimately, they made no secret that over the last sort of 12 or 18 months, they wanted to maybe look at an upgrade for Saar. Ultimately,
Mm,
they thought maybe a younger goalkeeper that can have a year on the bench and chances and then eventually overtake Saar. But they went about it really badly. I think Wolves. It almost seemed a bit of a panic vibe because it was something right at the end of the transfer window. We looked at Ramsdale, who obviously moved on to you guys.
Mm,
Ultimately, Wolves decided then with Sam Johnston for £10 million, who came in, and I thought maybe Saar will be moved on then, and he wasn't. He stayed as well. So for me, it
mm,
just made a mess. We've got 4 senior goalkeepers now, which is you don't need, to be completely honest. So
no.
and then Johnston got a little injury. Saar kept his place. Saar played quite well against City, but then chucked a goal away against Brighton, where he kicked it straight to them. I don't think his distribution has been awful since coming back into the team, but certainly still leaves a lot to be desired. So
Mm.
it's just a bit of a mess behind the scenes. God knows what's happening with the goalkeeper situation at the moment, to be honest. And I couldn't tell you who will start in goal on Saturday either.
We'll be interested to see. When you look at the team, do you think it'd be pretty much the same team that started the game against Crystal Palace? You see many changes? Is there injuries within the camp at the moment?
As far as I'm aware, it seems to be okay. The team against Palace was okay. I think Sarabia probably won't start. It was almost cheered when he got subbed off, unfortunately, because his performance was that bad. But in terms of shape, I'd probably say something similar. Um, I don't know who would come in for him. Maybe Jean-Ric Bellegarde as like a French attacking midfielder. Maybe Carlos Forbes, who's a Portuguese winger who adds a lot of pace. I don't know, but personally I would keep the same shape. I felt it worked fairly well going forward. We had an element of control on the game as well. So I think it'll be minimal changes from that match. Johnston may come back in, but I think that would be a tad harsh on Jose Sarr. But in terms of shape and the majority of the personnel, I assume would be kept the same.
Yeah, be an interesting game, that's for sure. What's your score prediction? Thinking ahead to it, looking ahead to it, you're obviously gonna put your Wolves out on
Yeah.
now. What's your score prediction, mate?
Um, my heart is saying a 2-1 Wolves win, but my head thinks 1-1. And like I said earlier, I think 1-1. Knowing Wolves is probably enough to keep Gary O'Neill in a job, but I know there'll be a lot of negativity towards the team and towards the staff on social media after the game if it does finish 1-1. But look, I think we've got enough quality to beat Southampton, but ultimately they've got a lot of momentum. Positive win for you guys last week, and you're going to
Mm.
take that positivity into this weekend, so it's definitely not going to be an easy game.
Yeah, I'm glad we did get that win because it does become like a little bit of a pressure pot, and it builds up and up and up, and everyone gets tenser and tenser and tenser. The one thing I will say about the game on Saturday is that the fans really stuck with the team, and it made a big difference
Yeah.
because as the game went, you really needed the fans, and it took a while to get that goal, but the fans did stick with it, and hopefully, like the Wolves fans, continue to stick with their side, and
Fingers
and
crossed.
it will come good, but hopefully not on Saturday against us. Dave, thank you very much for the insight into Wolves. Before you go,
Pleasure.
who's in form at the moment? Any player that you feel could cause big problems at the weekend?
A couple of the attack. I mean, to be fair, I know we've been really poor, but like I said earlier, attacking numbers are okay. Cunha, still, looks so good. His attacking numbers and goal contributions already this season have been decent. Jorgen Strand Larsen, new striker, he scored 4 goals already for us in the Premier League as well.
Mm,
And João Gomez, I think he should start, but he was phenomenal. I thought against Palace last weekend. He had a little bit of a slow start to the season, but João Gomez has been very, very solid. So I'd say those three. Lamina will be an interesting one. See, obviously, if he comes in back into the team, he had a little knock, so he started on the bench last week, but came on and had a good impression against Palace. So he
yeah.
may come back in because I'm sure he's got a bit of a point to prove maybe against Southampton again after the last time. But yeah, Gomez, Cunha, and Strand Larsen definitely the ones to watch on Saturday, I think.
But there you go, Saints fans. You have an insight into who to look out for on Saturday at Molineux. I'm going to be heading to Molineux for this one. Very, very excited for it. Another must-win game for both teams, and the pressure is well and truly on.